Hi everyone. Just getting on Dejan again on the screen. Just 1 second. Easy.
Okay.
Hi Dejan. Thanks for joining us on this live AMA. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
That's great. Just for everyone for this AMA, let's just run through the housekeeping and we can pretty much get started on this awesome conversation because, as you guys know, it's about understanding loyalty and reader retention. So there's a lot to talk about. So with this AMA, pretty much we've got an agenda that we're going to be running through. So you can. This is currently live streamed on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and as well it's on the website. So you can just go through on the chat box and put in your questions, or you can send it to me directly, and we'll be monitoring the questions as we go. And yeah, the first half we'll just go through the agenda, and the next half we'll just go through the questions specifically. So just before we start, though, Dejan, if you could just provide a bit of background about Content Insights and what you guys are doing at the moment, that'd be awesome.
I would gladly do so, but could you change the tone? It looks like I have an echo or something. Or is it fine on your side?
It's fine on my side. Just make sure that you don't have any other pages up.
No, nothing. No. All right. Anyway, so hi, thank you for having me and for the opportunity to talk about a really hot topic, I think, today in publishing.
Absolutely.
And hopefully some of the expertise that we carry, I will be able to present here. So the Content Insights is analytics tool that basically covers a big question of using metrics that are not editorial, but for marketing and sales issues. And nevertheless, newsrooms all around the world are using those metrics to evaluate the performance of their content. Okay, so I'm trying to work with my tongue here because this is annoying, you know. Anyway, so it started a few years ago when we wanted to solve quite a different problem, and that was the problem of how to evaluate performance of writers without actually putting them through what, for instance, writers writing for Gawker went through, where they had to compete each other on page views. And when you compete on page views and clicks, usually you get instantly other sort of incentives as a writer or as a journalist than the ones that you should have as a journalist. So basically, your incentive is you know, getting more page views instead of informing or entertaining your audience. So in that way, it was more important to get a better headline on social networks than creating a story that engages people. You know? So it started as a search for something that actually can change that, and hopefully we managed to do that over the years of experimentation and using writers and our media as guinea pigs, basically, until we were confident enough to say, yes, this is the set of metrics that actually editorial should use, and leave page views and clicks behind. You know, and that's what Content Insights is about. And when you switch the way how you evaluate things, then you get to real connection between content performance and content consumption and behavior of the audience, because behavior, which we call engagement or loyalty, is related with people, and the metrics that were used before are related to browsers. So page view is nothing more than your browser loading a page, HTML code of your page, and hitting the Java code script on your HTML code, and then the page view counter goes one up. That has nothing to do with reading, viewing, or anything else that you actually today use page views to describe for. So in that way, we are changing the paradigm about the paradigm in trying to show the industry that they should stop looking at browsers and start looking into people with no creepy stuff.
I think, like you said, it's changing that behavior and understanding. So I know you guys have calculated, you have behavioral models that you've created, and and you've used that calculations to create your CPIs. So let's go through the first item on the agenda. What actually makes really a loyal, and how do you calculate a really loyalty?
Yeah, well, loyalty is a pretty complex. We could say emotion more than a behavior,
Right.
And we should differentiate loyalty from habitual behavior, from having a habit of doing something, because doing something out of habit can be very automatic. You can even hate yourself for having that habit. While being loyal towards something is a very direct, emotional, and self-controllable behavior. So, in that way, there is a legitimate set of tactics and mechanics and metrics that create and measure habit. And there was nothing on the. And for instance, the first model developed to actually measure loyalty, as they called it back then, was a famous Rfm model, which is, you look at recency, frequency, and monetization. How recent somebody's coming to your content or your offer, how frequent are they coming, and whether they gave you some money or not. And in that way, the definition of loyalty is somebody who comes as often and spends money. And it worked basically for e-commerce websites. And it generally worked before the era of social media, because that's when the recency and frequency part gets messed up. Because you can have a lot of frequency, and you can have people that are coming to your website every half hour without knowing that, your brand or why they're there at all. So in that way, we should not confuse that with loyalty, but we should call that its real name, and that's people who are stranded on your content because you have a very good headline editor. And with some luck, with that kind of trickery, like clickbaiting, you can create a habit. If you if you are consistent in doing what you're doing well, but that's not loyalty. So, is habitual behavior enough? Do we really need loyalty, right? I'm not going to go into studies showing that loyalty is actually what you need because of some obvious things. Loyal reader, loyal consumer, or loyal buyer will not only buy or read or come back to you, they will also be your advocate. They will recommend you. They will share your stuff. While people who are doing, who are coming to your content just because of the habit, will do just that. Generally speaking, of course. You cannot cover all behaviors with a single carpet statement. Yeah.
Sorry to jump in, but I guess you said that you didn't want to touch upon studies behind some of those studies that you didn't want to compare the loyalty, I guess, statistics. Yeah, because I think that's a really important part because when you're going to be, especially for publishers, when they're going to be pushing the case, towards particularly for subscription model, and they need to show that value behind that subscriber, and they need something to back it up besides their own data, external data. You're saying that you can't rely on that. So why?
I would really love to answer that question if I really got it because of the echo. I'm still hearing echo.
Sure.
So you're like in a barrel filled with nothing, and you're speaking to me. So I didn't get the question, but I guess it's about why studies don't show that loyalty works or something.
Yes, and more specifically, why you don't like to reference studies on loyalty.
Oh. Okay, so let's take a less study from the Northwestern University in United States. By the way, Northwestern is a cradle of quality journalism in America, and we can say the world. So most of the big names you know about came from that school. And what they came with is that actually creating habit is the most important thing to get people to subscribe to your newspaper, because the study was aimed at how to have more subscribers subscribe to local news. Okay, and creating having mechanisms that create habits turned out to be most important, like having a newsletter that hits your inbox every day, or anything else that you can come up with. Now that is a small part of the issue, but they couldn't look at the big picture. And at the end of the study, they actually underlined, we've used metrics that we could not. I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing. That we could not say fully that can describe what we were looking for, but that's what we had, and that's what we had to work with. So basically, they went with this because they didn't have anything that could actually describe what loyal user actually is and how you could measure that. So how loyal are you? All right. And then could you attribute that back to whatever you're creating? So in that way, also, or let's say Reuters research, I think 2 years ago, where they used a formula for loyalty that it is equal to returned visitor. So if you go to the website and you come back within the time that your browser session is open, you should be counted as loyal. And that was pushed by analytics softwares like Parsley. So you'll have at the end of the research, you will have a table where they try to put in one column metrics and the other column behaviors that it describes. And you had directly in the right column there was loyalty, in the left column returned visitors. So even when the best people in the area, so Northwestern, I repeat, that's the best school. If you want to be a journalist, try to get in there. All right. Are feeling that they're under-equipped to measure something like that. And when people who are professionals in the area are talking about this, it's mostly about UX. How do you create your call to action? Should the button be left or right? Should it be red or blue? Should it be at the end of the article? Should it be a video with the call to action at the end? Should there be a heartwarming plea at the end of the article that you should support your news? And it's all concerned about that last page, that page where you click, all right? While the real thing is a journey towards that page. Now, I'm not saying that people will not react impulsively sometimes, or even often. So they will click on things because they were influenced by a campaign or a recommendation, or they just liked what they read on that single page. It happens. But that's habit. If you or you want to support I don't know, the media because they are under attack from Trump or Duarte in Philippines or whatever, you know. So if you want to create loyal readers, you should look into their customer journey. So loyalty is something that is being created in time. Okay. So it's that complex of a matter, and we did the research of our own. And you know that we have CPI for loyalty. That's a compounded metric that actually looks into relationship between metrics describing each step that we think drives people toward loyalty. Okay, and we had to use even more complex definition than that in our research to actually see the persistence of behavior over weeks with a set of people that we thought were loyal. If we used anything less, the line went like that. So the interest dies out. So loyalty is you know, if we were like talking about loyalty 300 years ago, we would usually be talking about people dying for somebody, you know, so that's being loyal. You do not describe that with a single metric. And if you want to get even close to that, to describing anything like that, you have to look into myriad of signals telling you that that person is going to be loyal. So in that way, I don't trust studies about loyalty right now because they are not equipped to look into behavior like that.
Really awesome. So, and you touched upon a lot of things. So just on top of that, what are some of the compound metrics that people should be looking at to measure loyalty?
Well, that's what we've discussed. You know, I don't want to turn this into a shameless plug, you know, but
of course. But I guess one of the things that we wanted to cover today as well is how to calculate reader loyalty. And you mentioned that one of them is you said that the key thing is to get a bunch of metrics and then compare them in order to measure loyalty. So what are some of the examples, I guess? Maybe let's phrase it that way.
Well, you know, our definition of a so as close as we could get to a definition of a loyal user is somebody who is persistent in being highly engaged with your content. So we are talking about obviously content. You know, if you are running a grocery online, it's going to be a completely different definition to if you're running, you know, a car shop. You know, so when we're talking about content, it's about people being engaged with what you're creating and being engaged in a persistent, repeatable way. that means that we have to see a pattern of behavior that shows us that they are attentive to content, that they are really consuming it, that they are creating an action towards that they're involved with the subject, with the topic, and then that it ends with an action that actually shows you that they want more, which is usually subscribing to a newsletter or subscribing by paying to your subscription. And to get there are stages, because at the beginning of that journey, it's just awareness. So usually the best way to start is to capture people coming from search engines, because there is intent. So they are on purposefully looking to find out more about a certain topic or a certain subject, right? When you capture them, you should look into getting them engaged. So you should look what kind of approach to the topic they're interested gets them engaged. And then after that, when you manage to do that in a persistent way, you could expect that they will turn into loyal audience. But there are obviously many other journeys, and you should be able to track them all if you want to be efficient, and not look only into tip of the iceberg, which is actually, you know, the end page, the call to action page.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think particularly the part that we shouldn't be looking at last click or last path as a measure of activity. That totally makes sense. So you mentioned about the journey. So how do you see loyalty and retention with subscriptions, given that subscription model is or membership model is a very hot topic and what big publishers are moving towards? How do you see the overlap between them two?
How do I see
the overlap between subscriptions, subscribers,
overlap
and loyal readers?
So let's make sure readers do not have to be loyal in order to subscribe. I already mentioned that they could subscribe for many other reasons. They could subscribe because they politically support you. You know, they could subscribe because you had a very overwhelmingly attractive campaign. They could subscribe because who knows why, and then they're too lazy, you know, to go to PayPal and cancel it. You know, because if it's like $1.50 a month, you know, people balance things. So there are many ways why people subscribe. But if you want to retain people, and if you want your subscription to make sense in terms of you doing what you're doing and you're not doing something else, because there are many other industries where you can make much more money with tricks and making people do what they don't want, all right, than doing news or doing even entertaining content, you know. Well, depends on the sort of entertainment, but that's another. Anyway, so in that way, you don't need loyal readers to build subscription, but you need loyal readers to grow subscriber base. You need loyal readers to grow your influence. You need loyal readers to make impact in the world, which should be your aim if you're a journalist. Okay. So in that way, even if you want to try other business models, trying and failing with your loyal readers is much better and safer than doing it on the open market, okay, where you don't know if people like you or not. So in that way, retaining and building the loyal readership within your subscription base, because not all of your subscribers are loyal readers, is additional task that you should have if you're running subscription model, whichever model that is. I mean, thankful to micropayment systems, you can play and try various ways of how to build subscription models. You know? So in that way, yes, you should look into how your subscribers are acting and also make decisions towards that. Yeah. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think yeah, you did, which leads us to pretty much more of the examples of how to optimize that. And can you provide some case studies of doing that?
How to optimize what? Sorry, I'm still struggling with the echo.
Sorry about that. What I was saying was your question leads us really to the segue of how to actually do that. So can you provide us ways of optimizing for subscribers, for loyal readers, and some case studies around that?
Believe it or not, we believe that the key is in what you are actually doing. We believe that key is in the content. We believe that you can manage the whole customer journey with your content. We believe that you can actively create loyal readers out of your subscription base with your content, because we prove that you can measure that behavior, and when you can measure something, you can manage it. And there's no other way to manage a journey through content but with creating content than actually you see creates in return the behavior that you need. So basically, you create content for each stage of the customer journey and see how they progress from one stage to another. And at the end, hopefully, it ends with loyal readers paying you money. So in that way, not playing with content, not being victimized by mythology of the internet, where you should create short stories. People's attention span is too small. Your videos should be short. Your headlines should be sensationalistic. Your page should be obliterated with offers and banners and stuff that distracts people, because it's not your aim for people to read or watch. It's your aim is for people to click on something else. That's not the way to build a subscription base. That's the way to create a click farm. Okay. So many myths are built around people on the internet being idiots, and they're not. There are some, but everybody's on the internet now. So let's move back 50 years ago. You will still have that many people reading New York Times or Wall Street Journal, and 10x more reading, trash. So create trash for trash. That's fine. But that's not the subscription model in the digital arena, okay? Because trash you can find for free everywhere. People are not paying for that. So you have to provide content that, they want to pay for. And that's how you manage that. And that's hard work.
What's one example you've seen from Content Insights customers that have seen that, a good case study from them? Are you able to share one with us?
Case studies. Okay. So there are people who are very sophisticated in their ways. Okay, how they approach the subject, and we mostly find them in German local newspapers. Of course, they're not only in Germany; they're all over the world. But somehow it's systemic over there. All right, and when they use content insights and our philosophy, it basically underlines what they already know, but now they can prove it, and now they can manage it. Okay, but they knew all that even without us. So it's easy for us to get there and help them do it a little bit faster, do it in an automated way, do it in a way that they don't have to waste too much resources on it, and they can focus on what they do best, and that's informing their citizenship. But also we see digital first publications like The Local, for instance, whose basic business model is native advertising and subscription. You know, you would think that those are two incompatible models, because native advertising is basically pushing branded content towards your audience, and subscription, you know what subscription is. So those are like two incompatible in the first way, but it doesn't have to be that way, because people also want to know things about brands. That's part of the way, part of the life. So they do it in a way that is not obtrusive, that is not inhonest, you know, that is not creating the opposite effect. And basically, the best way to measure that is by using the metrics that we created. Shameless plug. So how to see when a sponsored article is creating the same behavior in your audience as your organic article. You cannot do that with page views and with clicks, because you can create the worst possible story and to get like a lot of traffic on it. Yeah. So in that way, they are able to put together two business models that at first glance shouldn't be in the same newsroom.
Yeah. Is there any specific campaigns you can elaborate with the online, with that German publication, that we can share with our audience on how they can complement the two together? I mean, that's really interesting that you mentioned how they've been able to make it work. I guess because, and as you mentioned, creating those content journeys is quite some work as well. But have you seen anything from them that you can share with the audience here now?
I'm struggling to make the question whole.
Sorry, I was
so
just
it's
asking.
best if you come a little bit closer and make it short.
That's okay. Have you seen any specific campaigns that they've recently run, the German publisher that you mentioned, which has, because you said that they know what they're doing. Have you seen any specific campaigns that they run that you can share with the audience?
We don't monitor their campaigns.
You don't monitor.
I really don't know. No.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Cool. So I think we've covered the main topics, and that all makes sense. So I'm just gonna pass it over just to give opportunity to anyone else who would like to ask any questions to you. But I've got a few other questions as well while we get some questions live to ask you now. So the first one that I have with me now is using cohorts or segmentation in analytics, is that an alternative, and as opposed to creating your own custom metrics and dimensions in measuring user retention and loyalty?
when you segment your traffic or your users, you will be able to correlate. So to compare and then correlate your results to whatever you're using to measure. All right. And you will get consistent and different results. But if you're using the same old metrics, I'm afraid it's not going to be describing the behavior. It's going to be describing just the difference between those two sets, between this cohort and that cohort, or people coming from that referrer, people coming from this referrer. So you will be able to notice the difference in behavior, but you will not, unfortunately, know what that behavior is and why it's different.
How about with Google Analytics, lifetime value metrics and using that? I guess you have to contextualize that a bit more, but have you find that being useful to some extent in trying to predict user behavior and loyalty?
Listen, Google Analytics is a wonderful tool. Okay, so you can do almost anything in it. The problem with detecting behaviors like loyalty is in having a big enough live data set across the field in a very long period of time that you can play with various models and see what actually describes it. So theoretically, you could use metrics like that to try and do this, but unfortunately, I'm not talking about lifetime metrics. I'm talking about basic assumptions in Google Analytics that are wrong for this. So they're not wrong for what Google Analytics is actually made for, and that's to help you build as successful PPC campaigns as possible. The basic assumptions that time spent is basically just the time of the session being opened until you move to another page on the same website is wrong. And time, attentive time that you spend with content is one of the fundamental metrics that you should look at when you're describing engagement. And when I said what I said before, you need to see the engagement in a persistent way over time in order to get close to describing loyalty. So that fundamental is basically flawed. And whatever you build on that is probably not going to work.
How about in terms of, sorry, the other question that I have next to me now was about attribution.
Okay.
So do you, with the CPI metrics that you guys have, how do you guys look at attribution?
Let me just make it clear how to, if we recognize a certain behavior, how we attribute it back to, I don't know, your topics or sections or writers or
most of where that
what kind of attribution?
Traffic attribution.
Sorry?
Sorry, just more traffic. In terms, there is the author, there's everything else, but in terms of where that user came from, the attribution. Sorry, what's helped them actually become a subscriber? Because as you know, user journey isn't linear. So how do you look at the attribution from that user behavior, user loyalty?
Okay, I'm struggling to see what attribution in this context is. Attributing what to what?
It just with whichever action you guys, a publisher wants to put, I guess, how do you make sure that the attribution is as clear as possible?
Okay, so I'll try to answer. I sort of understand the question, but I always want to make it perfectly clear, so I don't get digressed. So it's pretty clear and linear at this end, where you have results and certain behavior, and then you need to learn how to manage that. And in order to be able to manage that, you need a clear attribution to certain actions that you did, so you would know how to repeat them or avoid them, right? And to us, the basic granular tool or method is going back to topics. And we could see, and you can do that in many tools. That on the one side you have certain behaviors that you want to repeat or avoid, and on this side topics that created those behaviors. Of course, you need to have data on aggregate level, and you have to have thresholds, and they're based on experience and let's say an algorithm that actually learns which topics actually qualify to have attribution happening to them. So you can attribute the behavior to repeating a topic. So what we actually do, we follow trends of topics, whether positive or negative, and then through articles that they are used in, we follow the behavior created from the article, and then you can actually attribute that behavior to that topic. And then okay, if we write about this, we could expect more of that at this end. Is that close enough?
That's what I mean. That's what I meant. So thank you for answering that.
Yes.
Awesome.
Sorry, my English this late at night is not that good.
It's early in the morning here. So if anyone doesn't know, Dejan's actually from Serbia and I'm from Sydney. So hi guys. And
yeah, two S's.
It's very early in the morning here, so we're very passionate about what we want to speak about today. There's one more.
Thank you for that.
That's okay. There's one more question that I have from attending that couldn't make it today, and they're pretty much saying if there's one thing they can do today, what's the first thing they can do to get started on actually properly measuring user loyalty or reader loyalty?
Okay. So I'm trying to avoid saying, like install content insights. So listen, loyal readers will be created whether you know it or not. So I think if you're running a blog, or if you're running a media outlet, or if you're running a news website, or whatever content you're creating, the most important job you have is to make that content doing the job it's intended to do. Whether it's to inform, to entertain, that is its purpose. It's not its purpose to create loyalty. It's not its purpose to even create engagement. Those are things that are happening independently, because they can be positive and negative, but they will be there. What you need to make sure of is that your content is quality. All right. Even if you're writing trash about celebrities, do it in a way that compels people. Let alone if you're, doing geopolitical analysis of Southeast Asia. All right. So in that way, you will know that you're creating behavior, that you're creating emotions. Now, to start measuring that, if you want to manage the journey, you have to have content insights. Yeah, that's why we exist. That's, I mean,
That's fine. We can probably, that's one way. What's, yeah, if someone else.
let's stick to engagement. All right, I'll give you some advice that you can do without us, but that's not about loyalty, because that's too complex for you to do in Excel sheet. All right.
Okay. Sure.
I tried at the beginning of this process and it didn't work. So when you want to see if people are engaged, don't look just at one thing. Don't look if they scroll down. Don't look if time spent is more than average for your website. Look at all that together. Know how many words are in your article and how long it takes for that to be read. Are people staying enough to read that? Okay. And then combine that with whether they scroll down or not. And then combine those on aggregate level and see, I mean, you can do that in Google Analytics, and see if that amounts to something considerable, you know, and then you'll know that you'll engage people, and then make sure that they return. Okay. So that's what you can do without content insights. And that's wrong, but you can start with that.
Would you say?
And then when you grow a bit and you want to make money out of those loyal readers, then you come to us.
Then you come to you guys. There you go.
This is really shameless plug, you know, but hey, what can I do? I'm in business here.
That's it. I understand. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Would you say, like, ensure like the calculated metrics would help, using Google Analytics calculated metrics as a way to combine to?
Yeah, but you have to be careful with that. Okay. Because, you know, there's a rule in web analytics: thou shalt not create compound metrics. Because, you know, if you put your likes and your shares and your page views and your, I don't know, unique visitors, and you put them all together, what do you get? A metric that says how awesome you are. And then when something goes wrong or something goes good, what do you do about it? How can you intervene? What do you do to make that number bigger or smaller? You can't. So those are not actionable metrics. CPI is an algorithm that looks into relationship between metrics. Okay, it's not something that adds things together. So we are not concerned with the absolute numbers. We are concerned with trends and relationships between metrics. To explain that literally, you know, if I tell you you're in a car and there is a 100 kilometers something, you know, it's 100 kilometers something, but it doesn't describe anything. Okay, maybe there's a distance, but when you put it in context of time, so it's 100 miles per hour, now you know that I'm describing movement, the speed. Okay, so now you know what I'm talking about. And neither the hour nor the 100 miles told you that you're moving on themselves. Only when you put them together, you have a description of a behavior. And that's what you should be looking at: relationship between metrics. And we look at more than hundreds of those.
That's really clear. That's really good to make it clear, because yeah, of the fallacies behind what you said. I'll just leave it just for a minute, just to see if there's anyone that has any other questions. But just one second. Let's just see if there's anyone that has any other questions.
No, all clear.
Okay. Was there any final thoughts or any words that you'd like to share, Dejan?
I spent it like 10 minutes ago. And that's, you know, if you're in journalism, if you're in news business, it's a vocation. Okay, there are many ways you can make more money than that. So the essence why you exist is that people appreciate what you're doing, and that that you exist because of them, because they need you, because you're part of the democracy, or you're part of creating better lives. And in that way, your primary concern has to be the content that you serve. If you're creating content because you're in content marketing, or because you're in any other arena of content, you need to know if what your to know if your effort is returning something, and that something should be measured in a way that you as a content creator understand, and that's the behavior of the audience. When you write a joke, you want people to laugh. When you write obituary, you want people to, well, come to the funeral. So you need to know how to create a behavior with your content, and you need to measure that. So in that way, all of the world of content creation should be united in wanting to know how their content influences people.
Absolutely. Let's leave it out there. That's really fundamental. So thank you very much for your time, Dejan. I really appreciate it.
No problem, anytime. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks. See you later, everyone. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.